Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. The book I want to talk about today is titled The One Thing by American author Gary Keller. He is the chairman of Keller Williams Realty International, one of the largest real estate companies in the world, and has written several best-selling books with millions of copies sold worldwide. The book we're exploring today is one of them, a former #1 bestseller on Amazon.com. Let's start with the title, The One Thing. What does that really mean? We usually believe that to be successful and achieve great things, a person must toil and moil, learn as much as possible, and do as much as possible. However, the author of this book claims that if you want to succeed and achieve extraordinary results, you must learn to let go of many things and focus on doing just that one most important thing. Doing one thing is enough. The author believes this truth is so simple that many people find it hard to believe. Interestingly, the author, Gary Keller, didn't believe this theory would work at first either. It took him a long time to grasp this principle. In the first phase of his entrepreneurial journey, Gary Keller spent a decade building an excellent company. Things went smoothly during this period, and he was full of confidence, thinking the company would soon expand globally. To his surprise, the company suddenly hit a wall. Despite all his efforts and sacrifices, the business was a mess and showed no signs of improvement. At that time, he felt like he was caught in a trap, desperately seeking help from everyone around him, hoping someone could pull him out. It was then that one of his coaches extended a helping hand. They took a walk, and after understanding all the details, the coach began to think about how to help him solve the problem. By the time their walk was nearly over, the coach had a concrete solution. The coach asked him, "What do you think you need to do to turn this situation around?" Confused, Gary Keller shook his head and said he didn't know. The coach wrote down 14 key positions on a wall and said, "You only need to do one thing to fix your company's predicament. Appoint the right people to these 14 key positions I've marked. As long as you choose the right people for these 14 roles, the entire company will start moving in the right direction." Gary Keller was shocked. He couldn't believe the solution was so simple. He asked his coach, "Shouldn't the solution be a bit more complex? Wouldn't it be safer to do a few more things to turn a profit?" His coach replied, "It didn't take Jesus, just his 12 disciples. You just need the people in these 14 key positions." This moment was a turning point in Gary Keller's life. After the discussion with his coach, he made a major decision. He fired himself. He stepped down from his position as CEO and began to focus solely on finding the people for those 14 key roles. And the result? He found those 14 key individuals. In less than 3 years, the company achieved sustained profitability and saw its profits grow at a rate of 40% annually for 10 consecutive years, transforming from a regional business into a national powerhouse. But then a new problem emerged. When discussing work with these 14 key people, Keller would briefly summarize the few tasks they committed to completing in the current period. What troubled him was that while these individuals could complete most of their promised work, sometimes the most important task was the one left undone, causing their work to stall. Keller tried to communicate with them to simplify their work. He went from the few things you need to do this week to the 3 most important things for this week, and then simplified it further to the 2 most important things for this week. But he still saw no effect. Finally, he decided to try the one thing approach. He began asking them, "What is your one most important thing for this week? The one thing that, once done, will make everything else easier or unnecessary." This was an idea born of desperation, but it brought another surprise. Afterward, the performance of these 14 key leaders skyrocketed. It was because of these 2 experiences of being in a tough spot that Gary Keller began to analyze the relationship between his company's condition and his actions. He discovered a rather interesting phenomenon. Every time the company achieved massive success, it was when he was focused on doing just one thing. Keller pondered a question. Everyone has 24 hours a day, so why do some people succeed while others fail? Why are successful people able to accomplish more, reach higher goals, earn more money, and possess more things? If we consider time as the primary capital of a person's career, then everyone's initial capital is the same 24 hours a day. How do successful people allocate their primary capital to get returns that far exceed others? Keller believes the answer is that all the actions and choices of successful people revolve tightly around their goals. They succeed because they give up on the many things they could do but don't have to do, and instead focus on what matters most. Whether in work or life, to achieve the best results, you must narrow your focus. But most people don't believe this. They think that to achieve big things, it must take a lot of time and involve many setbacks. So they pack their schedules, live in a constant state of tension, and yet success seems to move further and further away. Everyone's time and energy are limited. If you try to do everything, you'll likely end up exhausted and handle nothing well. Your desire to have it all actually reduces your efficiency. The overwhelming pressure prevents you from completing tasks on time, leading to poor eating and sleeping habits, no time for exercise, and no time for family and friends. In Keller's view, this is going down the wrong path. Success actually has a shortcut, which is what we've been saying. Focus your time and energy on the one most important thing. Most of us don't operate this way because we have many misunderstandings about success. We've heard too many lies about it. These lies mislead us and hinder our progress. Since this book is about the one thing, Gary Keller specifically collected many maxims that conflict with this idea, such as everything matters equally, multitasking is more efficient, and discipline and willpower can solve everything. He believes these are all lies. So let's first look at the first maxim he collected: everything matters equally. In life, we often find ourselves in a predicament. We have to do many things every day, and what doesn't get done today gets pushed to tomorrow. Then the tasks pile up, becoming an unmanageable backlog. We are busy beyond our normal capacity, but success doesn't get closer just because we're busy. We work more but don't get more. This is because much of our busyness is aimless, mistakenly believing that every single task is important and trying to do them all. This is a common mistake we make. To get everything done, we turn to time management. A to-do list is indeed a useful tool that can effectively help us concentrate. However, we also often become constrained by the list, feeling as if we absolutely must complete every single item on it. Furthermore, the order in which we handle tasks is often unconsciously influenced by the list. Successful people, however, approach their tasks differently. Before making a decision, they think things through until they identify their primary task. They then make that primary task their core and organize everything else around it. They are likely to do the work that ordinary people would typically postpone. They have a clear-eyed view of their to-do lists. Compared to a long and cumbersome to-do list, they prefer a short and powerful success list. How do successful people transform an ordinary list into a success list? Let's look at the discovery of Joseph Urán. Urán was a master cryptographer who made outstanding contributions to both science and business. His achievements caught the attention of General Electric, which invited him to use the theory of Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto to examine whether the company's compensation plan for management was reasonable. So, what is this Pareto theory we just mentioned? In the 19th century, Pareto calculated and proposed that 20% of the world's population controlled 80% of the wealth. While this was originally about wealth inequality, Urán realized it was likely a universal principle. We now call this principle the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule suggests that a large majority of outputs and rewards come from a small minority of causes, inputs, and efforts. In other words, when it comes to success, gains are unequal. It's common to achieve great success from small inputs. Therefore, selective effort is the key to effective returns. Gary Keller himself is an example of this. A few decisive moments led to his current achievements. Take investing, for instance. The vast majority of his wealth comes from a handful of correct investments. So, we can use the 80-20 rule to transform our to-do list into a success list. Start by picking the most important 20% from your list of things to do. Then, narrow down that 20% until you find that one single most important thing. The second lie about success is multitasking is more efficient. Since doing the one most important thing is so crucial, why do we still try to do other things at the same time? In 2009, a Stanford professor conducted a study to see how so-called multitaskers manage to complete several tasks simultaneously. He told a New York Times reporter that he himself lacked this ability but had often admired those who could do it. The professor led a research team that distributed over 200 questionnaires to students about their multitasking habits. He divided the subjects into frequent multitaskers and infrequent ones, hypothesizing that the frequent multitaskers would be more efficient. The results, however, were completely unexpected. The professor said, "I thought multitaskers must have some kind of secret weapon. Turns out they're just lousy at everything. They can't filter out irrelevancy. They're not good at keeping information in their heads. They're just terrible at it." So, the idea that a person can handle several things at once is just a beautiful lie. The problem is that this practice is very popular now. Many people believe they should be multitasking and spare no effort to do so. We often see this way of working as a sign of high efficiency and frequently discuss how to master this skill. Companies even list it as a clear advantage when hiring. But in reality, it's just a misguided lie. Multitasking is neither efficient nor effective. If you try to do two things at once, you will either fail to do them or do both of them poorly. There's a saying that goes, "If you chase two rabbits, you will catch neither." Sometimes we can indeed do two things at once. For example, I can walk and talk at the same time, or I can eat while looking at a map. But we cannot simultaneously do two things that require our focus. Strangely, modern people are particularly fond of giving others the impression that they are multitaskers. For example, working while listening to music, driving while talking on the phone, or eating while playing on a smartphone. Sometimes it's not that we have too little time and too many things to do, but that we are constantly telling ourselves to do more and more things. In the time it used to take to do one thing, we now hope to do two or even three. Let's talk about our work environment. Our offices are places where everyone is expected to be a jack of all trades. You're focused on a project, and suddenly someone coughs and asks if you have a cough drop. The office phone rings constantly, no one is spared. Then there are the never-ending emails in your inbox, the constant buzz of your phone signaling new messages, a pile of unopened packages, a heap of undone tasks, and always someone relentlessly asking about your progress. So, these distractions, interruptions, and disruptions are happening every moment. Research shows that, on average, office workers are interrupted every 11 minutes, and they spend a third of their day recovering from these interruptions. Yet, despite all this, we still have to complete our tasks on time. The idea of multitasking or switching between tasks is nothing but self-deception. Researchers have found that task switching is not without its costs. For simple tasks, the extra time consumed is 25% or less. For complex tasks, the extra time consumed can exceed 100%. As a result, we waste an average of 28% of our workday on task switching. We are completely unaware of the high price we pay for this multitasker image. The third lie about success is discipline and willpower can solve everything. We often tie success to willpower, as if having willpower guarantees success. The problem is, for most of us, willpower isn't something we can summon on demand, nor is it an inexhaustible resource. You can think of willpower like the battery indicator on your phone. It might be fully charged in the morning, but as the day goes on and you continuously use your stored energy, it gets depleted. You need to find the right time to recharge it, not just use it continuously. We all know to use limited resources wisely, yet we fail to plan for willpower as a finite personal resource. Consequently, when we truly need willpower to complete an important task, it may already be gone. Modern research shows that willpower is indeed fleeting powerful but not long-lasting. After using willpower, the glucose level in our blood drops sharply. We can think of willpower as a resilient mental muscle that needs a long time to recover. If you use too much willpower on one thing and don't wait for it to recover before moving on to the next, your performance will be unsatisfactory. At this point, you need to refuel your brain, for example, by eating foods that slowly raise blood sugar levels like carbohydrates and proteins. So, to make the best use of willpower, you need to consciously manage your timing. Do your most important work when your willpower is at its peak each day, and finish it before your willpower is depleted. Discipline, likewise, is not something that comes easily. Human nature makes it impossible to demand discipline from yourself at every moment. Instead, you should cultivate a specific habit through consistent training over a long enough period. The secret to success is to choose the right habit and train yourself to develop it. Once that habit becomes part of your life, others will see you as a disciplined person. It can be incredibly difficult to start building a habit, but once it's formed, maintaining it is much easier than creating it. So you might ask, how long does it take for discipline to become a habit? A study from University College London provides a clear answer. On average, it takes 66 days to form a habit. We are sometimes encouraged by the idea that you can form a habit in 21 days, but this is unrealistic. So don't give up too early. The London researchers also discovered a halo effect in habit formation. During the experiment, students who developed good habits generally reported less stress, fewer impulsive habits, better eating habits, less frequent TV watching, and even an improvement in not letting dirty dishes pile up. This shows that maintaining a good habit not only gets easier but also brings benefits to other areas of life. We all know that swimming champion Michael Phelps was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder as a child. His kindergarten teacher told his mother, "Michael is always restless and can't sit still. I'm sorry, but your son is completely unable to concentrate." Yet this young man, who seemed so far from focus and success, went on to break one world record after another. His mother proudly said, "Michael's level of focus astounds me." His coach also praised his focus as his most powerful weapon. So how did Phelps make such a transformation? The secret lies in his years of training habits. From the age of 14 until the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Phelps trained 7 days a week, spending 6 hours in the water every day without a break. He allocated all his energy to this one most important thing. This discipline and habit allowed him to find his place in the pool and achieve tremendous success. Alright, now that we've cleared up these lies about success, we can return to the main theme of the book. What is that one most important thing? You need to ask yourself a key question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it everything else will be easier or unnecessary? This question can be broken down into 3 parts. The first part, what's the one thing I can do? This part inspires you to act. The one thing means the answer is a single specific action, not many things. Although you may have many options, you must make a choice, otherwise you can't move on to the second and third things. You must choose the one most important thing to do. I can do implies taking a possible action. Can do is not must do, might do, or will do. There are many things we must, might, or will do but never actually do. The power of doing something because you can is greater than just wanting to. The second part, such that by doing it, this sets a standard that your answer must meet. This standard shifts you from just picking something to do to doing something for a specific purpose. By doing it means you have to dig deep because after doing this one thing, something else will follow. The third part, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." You must find such a fulcrum, one that makes other things easier or unnecessary. After you've done your most important thing, you'll find that the other things you need to do to achieve your goal can be done with less effort, or perhaps don't need to be done at all. You can turn a blind eye to trivial matters, as if you're wearing blinders. This is how you can potentially change the trajectory of your life and do that one most important thing without distractions. The focusing question will guide you to find the most important thing at different stages of your life. In different periods, you just need to shift your focus and rethink what the key question is. According to Martin Seligman, former president of the American Psychological Association, the most important thing for a person to have happiness is to be fully engaged in their endeavors and to make their life more meaningful. When what we do each day gradually leads to a goal, a sense of happiness follows. The way to achieve success is to understand what truly matters to you and to achieve it through small, incremental steps. The book's author, Gary Keller, offers a very practical suggestion: the backward planning method, or goal setting to the now. First, consider your long-term goal, and then work your way back step by step to identify the most important thing you should be doing right now. Think about it. For my long-term goal, what's the one thing I should do in the next 5 years? For that 5-year plan, what's the one thing I should do this year? For this year's goal, what's the one thing I should do this month? For this month's goal, what's the one thing I should do this week? For this week's goal, what's the one thing I should do today? For today's goal, what's the one thing I should do right now? Connect all the goals one by one until you find the most important thing to do in the present moment. For example, someone once asked the famous American comedian Jerry Seinfeld how to become a better comedian. Seinfeld said, "Write a joke every day." His method was to hang a huge calendar on the wall. On any day he wrote a joke, he would put a big red X over that date. He said, "After a few days you'll have a chain. Just keep at it and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job next is to not break the chain." The point is, consistency isn't a long race, it's many short sprints strung together. Alright, that covers the main content of the book, The One Thing. The author tells us that we have had many misconceptions about success. We thought that to succeed in our careers, everything was important, that multitasking was more efficient, and that discipline and willpower could solve everything. In fact, these are all lies about success. To achieve extraordinary results, you must know what the most important thing you can do is, and then, centered on this core goal, work backwards step by step to find the most important thing to do right now. So now, take a moment to think. For you, what is your one thing? Thank you for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.